Today's guest is one of the world's leading performance coaches. He's coached Super Bowl champions, both coaches and players, all-stars, World Series teams, and top CEOs, among countless other high-performing professionals. And he's made a career, one he is incredibly passionate about, around helping high performers create the mental systems that turn pressure into clarity and success into repeatable patterns. Today's guest is Justin Sua. And believe it or not, Justin and I's paths first crossed nearly a dozen years ago when we were both working at IMG Academy. I had the pleasure of not only meeting Justin back then, but beginning to learn from him, both in near and far proximity as I studied him, observed him, listened to him, literally like a sponge. And to this day, he is still one of the few select Instagram profiles I closely follow and check in on regularly because of the phenomenal content he is putting out. I'm going to give you a brief, or a better overview, I should say, of Justin, and then we're going to dive right into what promises to be a fantastic and impactful conversation. Justin is a world-renowned mental performance coach. He's the founder of Performance Advisory Group, where he works with elite athletes, business leaders, and high performers across industries to help them master the mental side of performance. He has served as the head of mental performance for the Tampa Bay Rays and worked with Major League Baseball, the Cleveland Browns, the Boston Red Sox, the U.S. Army, Fortune 500 executives, and multiple Olympians. He's known for his ability to distill complex psychological principles into simple, actionable tools. And you're going to learn so much in my conversation with Justin. Without further ado, help me welcome Justin to the show. Justin, I've got to admit, I've consumed a lot of your social media content over the years, and you're one of the few people who I know makes me better when I do that. And one thing that struck me with quite a surprise was that we spend so much time talking about learning from failure. But you spend a lot of time talking about the importance of also learning from our successes. Tell us more about the missed opportunity when we don't spend time studying and learning from our successes as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And those who know me best know that there's a quote in particular, a famous quote, that I don't fully agree with. And the quote is, sometimes you lose, sometimes you learn. While I understand the premise of the quote and I understand the principle, and I think it's great, I am a firm believer that we also learn from winning. And we learn from behavioral economics that a loss feels 2 times worse than a win feels good. And losses tend to be more sticky. They tend to be more sticky emotionally. They tend to be more sticky mentally. It's harder to let go of them. They come back and they eat at us. It's very difficult sometimes once we have those losses. But what also happens is when we win, I've seen in pro sports and just generally in amateur sports, when you win, you celebrate, it's happy, you go eat, you talk about the highlights, you laugh, and then you move on. As opposed to pausing and remembering that success leaves clues, to be able to go back and have a feedback loop and say, okay, what did we do that worked for us? What were the things that we got lucky with? What were the things that were outside of our control where the ball just happened to bounce, take the right bounce for us? And I think there are so many lessons that we leave on the table because we don't stop and really analyze how the win went as well as we do with the losses. You hear oftentimes when there are losses or consecutive losses, oh, I'm going to get back to the drawing board. We're going to go back into the lab. Yeah. But we don't do that after wins. We don't go into the lab after wins. And my recommendation is that we do. And we do identify, what did we do well? What did we learn? What are we going to do better next time, win or lose? And so that's something that I'm a stickler on with the coaches and executives and the coaches, the players that I work with.
I love that. Now, is your framework for reflection or auditing the experience, preparation, and performance the same after every performance, regardless of win or lose? Or are there unique aspects of the questions you might encourage your athletes and coaches and entrepreneurs to ask?
Yes, good question. I'm a fan of closing the loop.
Okay.
Feedback loops are very, very important. And one of the ways to get high signal in our feedback loops is to have as much consistency as possible. We talk about routines very often with performers or with leaders of any kind. You think about pilots, you think about surgeons, and it doesn't matter how experienced you are, how many years you have under your belt, you always have this checklist from what I'm not a pilot or a surgeon myself, but what I have been told that you have this checklist. It doesn't matter how long the flight is, how short the flight is, you have this very similar series of checklists. And one thing that soldiers taught me during my time with the US Army is they have an after action review. And in that after action review, it is the same series of questions that they ask themselves in order to shine a light on their potential blind spots, so that the information that is gathered after the event, after the game, after the meeting, after the quarter, whatever it may be, that you're able to deduct the important information, or the information that you deem is important. So to answer your question more succinctly, I invite the coaches, the executives, the players to have some kind of after action review with a set of questions that are very similar, the same questions. Now, you, the player, the coach, the leader, you decide what the high signal questions are, and you might change them over time, but to ask yourself the same ones, win or lose. Can I give you an example?
Please do.
So there's a Major League Baseball player I was working with. He's a pitcher, and I noticed that he was very volatile after wins and losses, and emotionally. And he like we spoke about earlier, tend to just really hang on the negative parts of his game. And it started to bleed into day 2 and day 3 and day 4, and he wasn't catching himself winning. And so what we came up with together was a set of questions that he was going to ask himself with me, and we were going to discuss it together after every single pitching outing. And the questions were these. Number 1, what did you do well? And the reason for that question was because his brain, I wanted to help him, and he wanted to help himself learn to hunt the good stuff, learn to see the good that he was doing, because the part of his brain, it was so fixated on the negativity. And so we wanted to train him to say, okay, what are the good that I'm doing? The second question so we wanted to help him flex his optimistic muscle. The second question he asked himself after every single outing, outing is after every time he pitches, is what did I learn? What did I learn? And the reason we asked that question, what did you learn? Go back to our initial part of the conversation is, what did you learn from your failures? What did you learn from your successes? What did you learn from the opposing pitcher? What did you learn from hitters? What did you learn from your teammates? What did you learn about the environment? Ooh. Just all of the lessons that he could have possibly learned. Because one of the things that we know about becoming a better version of yourself is to become a learning machine. And so that is the second aspect that we wanted him to do. Charlie Munger has a quote that I love. He says, you want to go to bed smarter than you woke up. And that's the second question. How do we help you optimize intelligence and learning? The third question that he answered every single time was, what is one thing I'm going to do better? And so that question puts him in the driver's seat. It elicits autonomy, and it helps him realize that I am the one with a pen in my hand, and I am directing where I'm going to go. And we only focused on one. There were so many things he could focus on, but we want to lock in on one specific thing. And so that's one way what it looks like. Now, the questions for an NFL quarterback that I'm working with look different. The questions with a major league manager at the end of our season, it's going to look different. And so, but my invitation is to create some kind of feedback loop, close the loop at the end of whatever iteration you deem necessary.
So well said. And I'm laughing because my listeners and my clients who listen know that that's an integral part of my framework. For my golfing clients, I call it the after round report. But what I love too is that well-learned better framework. You might not even remember this, you taught me this through or with our mutual colleague and friend, Stephanie, when we crossed path at IMG Academy. Like that's where I got that framework from. So I love that it is still a staple that of course is evolved and is individualized based on your client because it freaking works.
I love that. That's amazing. Yes, it's one of those, for me at least, tried and true, simple, basic systems that optimize learning and growth. And a little thing to add to it. So every athlete that I work with, they have some kind of journal. They have some kind of journal. Some put it in their phone, some have it written down. And the reason why you do that is for data capture. We want to be able to capture that information. And I love the phrase, the weakest pen is stronger than the strongest memory. And the reason we document this is because we're always writing for their future self. I always say we are doing this for the person, the you in 3 months, the you in 4 months. When that man or woman is struggling, you're going to be able to go back to this time when you're doing well and say, oh, so you're leaving clues and lessons for your future. And so that's why I'm a huge fan of writing things down.
That's a powerful framework. Now, I want to get a little granular here because you kind of alluded to it. Where I get some additional feedback and questions when I'm coaching my clients through this is, well, can I voice note it? Do I have to write it down? When do I do it? So if you had to share 2 to 3 best practices to maximize the reflection period and opportunity to learn and close the loop, what are those best practices you share with your clients?
So for me, the basic principles are what can be done very simply. Very simply, what can you do that will reduce as much friction as humanly possible? Some athletes tell me to my face, as you probably had, or clients, is I don't want to write. I'm not writing. I'm not going to text it. I'm not going to text it, or I'm not going to type it. And so we find some kind of way. So whatever is easiest for the client, that's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two is what is the best cadence possible? Sometimes I have some athletes after every game. Now, if you're a baseball player, that is 162 games a year. Some athletes, some baseball players, it's once a month. Some it's every 2 months. So whatever is best for you. I have some who will just send me an audio message. They will send an audio message as they're driving. I will take it, I will copy it, I'll grab the transcript, and then I will send it back to them with the key points for themselves. So our text thread becomes our shared journal notes for ourselves. Yes. I have one athlete where it depends on the question. I have one athlete who doesn't like to type. He doesn't like to audio message. He's a professional tennis player. And so the questions that we have engineered are numbers. They're just simply data, like numbers. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how well did you do this? On a scale of 1 to 10, how well did you do this? And he just send 3 numbers, 6, 7, 4. And that's it. There's no words. There's nothing. And all we do is capture trends. And then you'll see trends over time. And then we'll plot it on a document. And then you can see the linear path and the trends and the peaks and the valleys. And then we have discussions and conversations around it. So for me, it's whatever works best for the client.
I love that. And for those of you listening, I hope you see there's no one size fits all here. What's most important is to capture the data, preferably as soon as possible in the simplest, easiest way possible after the performance, the round of golf, the big sales meeting, the pitch, the sales call, whatever it is, and to learn from it. I love how you keep coming back to the word data. It's just data. We don't have to assign an emotion, a good, bad, right, wrong label to it. It's an opportunity to learn and see trends over time, which then presents us with a path to learn and get better.
Exactly right. I completely agree with what you just said.
So tell me this, you work with a lot of incredibly successful individuals, and I imagine one of their superpowers they all possess is that ambition, that tenacity, that drive to go, and be the best at their respective crafts. I also have an imagination that you've seen the dark side of that, where they start to neglect themselves, their loved ones, their family members. They begin to attach their self-worth to their outcomes and results. So when you're working with somebody who is so driven to be the best of the best, how do you help them? And this might not be the best phrase, balance, and feel free to call me out on that word, going to be the best version of themselves while also taking care of themselves so they can sustain the success they're achieving.
Out of curiosity, what was it about the word balance that I don't want to say caused you to flinch, but made you give that kind of just talk about, like, it might not be the best word?
I hate that word. That's why.
Yeah. So why is that?
I'm a fan. I like, and I'm a stickler for word choice. My audience knows that, but I like alignment and honesty. So a little context there, and I'll pass it back to you. I am of the mindset that if you aspire to be the best of the best in your respective niche or industry, the first thing you need to do is be honest with yourself. Like, that is what I want. That is my goal. Because I've seen too many times professionally and with me personally where I sugarcoat my dreams. I play small. I say I'm going to do something, but my family life suffers. There's an incongruency. And it's really because I'm not honest with myself about what I want. I try to have the traditional work-life balance and something never clicks. Whereas instead, if I'm honest with myself, and those who support me, love me, and care about me, I can then take aligned action. Expectations are clear, and there would be on paper an imbalance of how I'm spending my time, but it's aligned with my heart, my purpose, and my mission.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I agree with you, and I'm not a fan of the word balance as well, either. Rather, I love alignment. I heard somebody say blend, work-life blending, where it's just kind of a blend. And someone said harmony, and then they threw that out because it's not. Sometimes it's not harmony. It's just it's spiky. It's difficult. But yes, to answer your question, that topic comes up all the time, amongst the best athletes. It's you're busy. You want to be elite and great and the best in the world. And then parts of your life might suffer as a result. It could be your health. It could be your mind. It could be your relationships. And so the same vigor and enthusiasm that you just described, that came out of you when you were just describing your goal to be the best you can, that my job is to serve as an outside set of eyes to my clients. It doesn't, again, executive, coaches, athletes. And to not necessarily make bold statements, but to ask bold questions. And some of the questions that I ask are systems thinking questions. Meaning, I will ask those questions. How are you blending your pursuit of greatness? So I'm a big fan of trade-offs and second and third order thinking. And so, for example, the analogy I give to a lot of my clients is second and third order thinking is essentially the ripple effects of your effects, the effects of the effects. So your pursuit of excellence and greatness in your career, what could be the unintentional consequences that may be affected positively or negatively as you pursue this? So we want to just put it out on the table and to create a pre-mortem. Essentially, let's just say, like, okay, what could potentially go bad as you are pursuing this? And we have a very hard conversation about their relationships, about their health, about health of all kinds. Yeah. And essentially, so there's a story that took place in a country, and they had these venomous snakes. The venomous snake population was starting to grow. So the government, in order to solve the problem, they decided they were going to give a reward to any of the citizens who killed the snakes and that turn them in. Okay, that's simple. Like, there's a snake population, people like money, kill the snakes, people get money, and then the snake population goes down. What ended up happening, because they weren't thinking in systems, what ended up happening is people were making money and the venomous snake population skyrocketed. It had the largest spike ever in the history of the country, because this is what was happening. The people, they were incentivized to make money as a result. And so what did they do? They started raising and breeding the snakes. And all of a sudden, you got the unintended consequences. And so the intentions were good, but they didn't quite think it through. Same goes for each one of us who are pursuing greatness and excellence. It requires to pause and ask yourself, how is this going to impact my time? How is it going to impact my attention? How is it going to impact my energy? And then
Mm.
my finances, the 4 finite resources. And then you take a look at it and then you explore it and then you continue to keep tabs on it. So whenever I do talk to them, we'll pay attention to their alignments. I'll watch very closely when they start deviating off course. And then what we do is create safety margins. Okay, if this is where you want to go, okay, how are we going to protect your marriage through this process? Okay, date nights once a week, texting your significant others, sending flowers. Okay, great. How are you going to protect your role as a mother or as a father? How are you going to protect your health? And so you start to build these systems in order to enhance their ability to achieve it. And so, again, this is a conversation we have all the time. And then we talk about, as you're pursuing excellence, then we talk math. I'm a big math guy. I love math and probabilities and data. And so the pursuit of greatness, the probabilities of achieving such are low. It's not easy. If it was high, everyone would do it. And so what do we do to increase the odds of you pursuing success or achieving success rather? And when you don't, how are we going to help you protect your emotions and your mental health and your emotional health to be able to stay in the fight and to not have it consume you? And so these are conversations and systems that we create personally with each person individually.
Go one step further, because I think if I'm hearing you correctly on that last segment there, it's like, okay, I'm pouring all this time into my pursuit of excellence. Results aren't happening or not happening fast enough. There's inevitable challenges I do and I don't see. There's frustration that's created. There's a strong likelihood that frustration could bleed into my marriage, my parenting, other relationships, and it becomes all consuming. What is the conversation or the framework to help ensure those emotions are properly felt, experienced, learned from, and expressed so they don't start to have the negative ripple effect into the marriage or other priorities?
Yes. So great question. I'll give you a very tangible case study. So I'm currently working with an NFL coach, head coach, working with a few of them, but I'm talking about one in particular. And what we discussed is his goals. Like, what does excellence look like for him? And we talked about what his goals are in his pursuit of greatness, to being the best version of himself at work and at home and so forth. And then what we discussed is leading indicators and lagging indicators. So lagging indicators of success, I'll just give a very simple example, is if you want to get fit, stepping on a scale, that is a lagging indicator. Wins and losses are a lagging indicator, meaning that there's a lot that went into it and it's a representation of all the work that went in. You can work really hard for 1 week and you might lose. Or you can but if you train yourself and eat right and sleep over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive weeks, then that weight on the scale, that number on the scale, it's going to start to go because of the systems catching up, the compounding effects. Now, leading indicators are things you have 100% control of. These are the things that if you do, there is a high probability that the lagging indicator, the results you're going for, are more likely to be accomplished and achieved. And so then we identified, okay, what do you want to accomplish? What does greatness look like as a husband, father, and coach? And that's the lagging indicators. And then we said, okay, we reverse engineer it. What are the things you have 100% control over that you need to do in order to affect those lagging indicators, to where over months, years, you're going to get the results that you want. And then we have to compound that. Now, then we identify when the results are not matching the effort, how do you want to respond? What do you want to take a look at? What are you going to do when you start losing 3, 4, 5 games in a row and the media is coming down? And so what we do is implementation intentions. We literally create all of the worst case scenarios. And we say, okay, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And then he decides how he wants to respond. And so these are very specific things that we discuss. And once a week, we talk about it. We take a look at his leading indicators and we say, okay, how are you emotionally? Okay, how are you spiritually? All right, what changes? What do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? This leading indicator that you initially said, Is it still a leading indicator? Or do we need to eliminate it? Do we need to focus on something else? And so it was constantly talked about because we are complex adaptive human systems. We aren't ones and zero binary human beings. And so we need to know that it's going to flow, it's going to ebb, it's going to go up, we're going to go down. But can you build a system that is stable in the midst of a storm?
And I think what I hear underneath all of those fantastic points is just the open line of consistent communication, whether that be with a coach or a mentor, or simply with yourself through some of those after round reports, the reflections post performance, journaling practice, some form of checking in with yourself. Would you agree that that is the undercurrent that allows you to remain dynamic and flexible enough to evolve, especially when we can only control so many variables and things outside of our control are going to lessen our outcomes or results on occasion?
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. You are absolutely right. In order to do all of this, the fundamental principle is being open and honest and vulnerable and transparent and authentic with how you really feel and who you really are and what you really want. I am so grateful. I cannot express how grateful I am to be in a position where these clients could feel safe enough to think out loud with me. There is a theory called social penetration theory from the 70s that essentially talks about, it's like the onion of communication, where on the outer layer is everybody knows it. It's someone's height, the color of their hair, the color of their eyes, everybody knows it. And then the next layer in, I'll just talk about 3 layers. Next layer in is when you know somebody enough to where you can somewhat predict how they're going to respond. You know their personality because you know them personally. And then the center, the middle of this onion in social penetration theory is information that the only way you can know it is if the person tells you from their own mouth. So this is their fears, their insecurities, their motivations, their drive, their why, their dreams. You're not going to share this with everybody. You're going to share with people who you truly, deeply trust. And that is part of this, to where we're able to have these safe, open conversations. And I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I am not a mental skills coach. I'm not someone who's going to tell them what to do. My job is to hold space and hold up a mirror and ask them questions to where these conversations are more generative. I've never coached an NFL team. I've never been in the batter's box of the World Series. I've never played at the US Open in tennis. I've never played in the Masters. But to be able to feel safe to ask questions to these athletes and to have them find their own answers, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have the pleasure of knowing you for a long time. Our paths crossed over a decade ago. So I know your warmth, your wisdom, your compassion, your ability to diffuse through some of those, I imagine, very strong walls and boundaries. And if we stereotype for a moment, males are typically very ego-driven. A lot of that testosterone coupled with the conditioning that asking for help is weakness. They're stubborn to let go. For the listener who really resonates with that archetype, what's the message you have for them about the power of being vulnerable?
Yes, you just described 98% of my clientele. You did a very good job. It's a very high octane, just highly competitive, type A personality, elite performer or leader. Very I don't want to say everyone's very aggressive, but it's a very competitive industry. Mm-hmm. And like you said, high emotions. I have so many stories where I'm just in rooms and chairs are being thrown and things are being broken and people are yelling and screaming. And I'm just sitting there and all right, let's get to business. And so when it comes to vulnerability, it comes down to a lot of times to, number one, providing a place where they feel safe to answer. But a lot of times I just ask questions. I don't have, like I said, I don't have answers, and I'll do a lot of observations and noticings. I'll notice things. I'll just say, you're obviously mad. what's making you mad right now? Like no one's asking them that question. Like while they are like seething, what's okay? Name it to tame it. Let's name it. Let's talk about it. And then when they start sharing it, why does that make you mad? And it's not for me. It's for them. It's not. I don't know what they're going to do with the information, or they'll say, "Oh man, I'm. This is a big game. I'm kind of nervous." What do you mean by that? What's nerves to you? Or have you ever had nerves before? Have you ever had nerves and played really well? Oh, I have. Tell me about that moment. So where you're just kind of helping them frame different things more with perspective, and also being able to have poke holes in what they say. So they might say beliefs and I might completely disagree with them. And that's okay too. And they could just say, or they'll say, oh, I'll pressure test some of the things they say. I'll have a player say, just this past World Series, I just got to focus on what I can control. And then I just say, that's so cliche. Like, what do you mean you got to focus on what you can control? I'll pressure test it. And they'll say, oh, and then they'll say like, why? And then I'll say, okay, so what are the things that you can control? Like name them. And then they start naming them. And then I'll ask, okay, I get that. What does that look like operationally? Like, what does that literally look like? Oh, it looks like this. And then I'll say, what makes that hard to do? Okay, I get it. Focus on what you can control. But in Game 7 of the World Series, what are the obstacles that will make that hard? Oh, well, this will make it hard. And so it's just this conversation while we're eating lunch together. And so that's really what it looks like. And so it's vulnerable, it's transparent, it's open. And then there are moments where I will purposely say something to make them disagree with me, just so we can have a conversation. So I'll give you an example. So we'll be going out to something or after a game, and maybe they're not talking to me, or maybe they're frustrated and they're just not saying anything. And I'll say something like, you seem really frustrated and scared right now. Like those are fighting words right there. Yeah. What makes you say that? Oh, I don't know. And knowing that I could be completely wrong, I just want the conversation. I want you to disagree. Or they say, yeah, I am. And then we get into it. But it's being able to have those open conversations, and also being vulnerable myself and being able to share and say, hey, this might be a terrible conversation, and I know how this might come off. I don't have the right words to ask these questions, but I hope you know it's coming from a good place. And then I'll just ask a naive question, or a question that hopefully is not taken the wrong way. And it just leads to great conversations.
I love that. And for those of you listening, like the theme here is curiosity, asking these questions, removing judgment and expectation. And it just further highlights the benefit, the power and value of coaching and mentorship. And it's also a skill you can begin to develop through your own journal practice, your inner dialogue, that inner voice. And Justin, you and I know that whether they be golfers, athletes of any sport, entrepreneurs and leaders, they often live and die by that inner voice. I'm curious, with the best of the best, what upgrades do you even see most commonly are needed in that inner dialogue so that they're able to give themselves an opportunity to perform at their potential under pressure when they need it most?
As you know, Paul, you work with very high level clients, and you are working with the best of the best as well. And you see that even at the highest level, at the end of the day, we're all humans.
I said, we're just humans.
And they too have very dark self-talk. They too have very insecure thoughts and ruminating ideas, and they beat up on themselves, and it might not be as productive or effective, but some of them are successful not because of their self-talk, but in spite of their self-talk, or despite they're just able to work against it and perform against their ineffective self-talk. And so it is not just, as you know, it's funny how some of the elite performers, they would even say it. Like some of them, their self-talk is not very good. And so they're just battling those inner demons. What I would say, one way to upgrade, one thing that I would recommend is, I'm a huge fan of the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. And I often say, if you want better answers, ask yourself better questions. And so I'm a huge, I don't know, a huge proponent. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm a huge fan of teaching athletes to ask more effective questions. For example, instead of asking yourself, and I keep saying athletes, it could be coaches or executives as well, instead of asking yourself, why does this always happen to me? Why am I so bad at this? Why don't I ever get this right? Our brain it loves contingencies, and it will fill those gaps. And so when you ask your brain that question, it will go and it'll find that answer. It's kind of like ChatGPT. The prompt that you give it will dictate the high signal answer that you give, that you receive. And so as a result, let's ask better questions. Instead of why me, ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of why do I stink so bad? It's, how can this situation make me stronger? Why did she get that opportunity or he get that opportunity? Is, what can I learn from that person, or what are they doing that I'm not doing that I can apply to my process that maybe help me move the needle a little bit more? And so even with some athletes, I will construct and engineer a series of questions that they can ask themselves. What am I grateful for? What did I do well? Now, what am I working on today? How did I get better at practice today? What do I want to accomplish in this meeting? How did I do in that meeting? And as you start to get better at asking questions, you'll notice that you're directing your internal dialogue, and it's going to be so much better. I think that's something that's one thing. The second thing that we do is embracing and being non-judgmental towards the thoughts that we do have. A phrase that we often hear in meditation practices or cognitive psychology is that things that you resist persist. If you try to push away a feeling or push away a thought, ironic processes states that it will come back faster. Tell yourself, don't think about an elephant. You think about an elephant. Brain doesn't know about the word don't. Very, very common in sports psychology in general, in particular. And so the analogy we often give is that of driving on a highway. And when you're driving on a highway and you start to doze off or you get distracted and you start veering to the far left, the car will start to vibrate. That's because you ran over a rumble strip on the side of a highway. I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. When you hit a rumble strip, it doesn't mean you're going to jail. It doesn't mean you're a terrible driver. It doesn't mean that you are going to get your license revoked or you're going to get a ticket. It's literally just saying, wake up, you're losing focus, get back into the lane. Safely, calmly, you just go. We don't beat up on ourselves when you hit a rumble strip. We also have mental rumble strips. And mental rumble strips are all of these thoughts. And so instead of looking at your thoughts as, they're destroying my self-confidence, you could look at those same thoughts and say, it's not a signal that I lack self-confidence. It's a signal that I'm losing focus. I'm allowing my attention to drift toward these rumble strip thoughts. Okay, I see it. And just like on the highway, you don't just sit there and drive on the rumble strip. You don't just sit there and just like wear it and take it. No, you get back into the lane. And so once you start thinking those thoughts, it starts with awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. Then you direct your attention, your prefrontal cortex, you direct your attention, the spotlight of your awareness, to more productive thoughts. What can you control? It might be a word. It might be a statement. It might be your breath. And so that's the second thing that we do often with my clients.
Really well said. And my audience will know that means a lot to me because I'm a big proponent of the self-talk, the word choice, the redirection. So I love hearing that's music to my ears. Now I'm curious, and you can literally tell me your answer or approach would be the same, but we talk about this, we keep hitting the mental rumble strip, and maybe we've gone over the rumble strip and we are into the guardrail, hopefully not literally, but figuratively in this moment here, whether that's a golfer having a blow up hole or two, an entrepreneur failing a pitch, a pitcher having a poor outing. What practices do you recommend to help overcome that, to bounce back quickly, if you will, the emotional resiliency so that they can reset, refocus, and move forward again?
Yes, that happens very often, as you can imagine, in sport in particular. Yeah. You got to take a look at the game that you're playing. You have zero-sum games and positive-sum games. Zero-sum games is there's one winner and one loser. Positive-sum games is there are multiple winners. It's like business. There could be multiple There could be multiple lucrative and businesses, but in sport, you have one winner, one loser, and so the emotions could be very, very high. Could they be high in? They could be high in both. And so the first thing that we do is we account for it. We literally say that, okay, this is a possibility, and what are you going to do when it happens? And so we identify, okay, we'll call it the red. Like we have green, yellow. Yellow is like when you hit the bump, the rumble strip. Red is when you hit the guardrail and you are crashing or crashed or whatever it may be. Metaphorically speaking. So one of the things that we say is that's why the rumble strips are so important. Hit it and then get back into the green. Hit the yellow, get back into the green. Now, when you hit the red, what do you do? So the first thing we identify is, what are the indicators that you're going to the red? It's just like you're driving down the road, you have green, yellow, red. It's not green, 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 and then all of a sudden red when slamming on the brakes. We are noticing, okay, once you see a yellow, red is on its way. Like we all know as we're driving, red is about to come, so you're going to speed up or you're going to slow down. Same thing with our performance. Right. Whether you're a leader, a coach, or an athlete, what are it's trending to a red indicators. And so the first thing you want to do is you have your safety margins there. Maybe it's slowing your breath. Maybe it's your self-talk. But let's say you go to the red. What we want to do is we want to identify, so there's a common acronym in clinical psychology, it's called FID, where we want to reduce FID. We want to reduce the frequency of hitting the guardrail, the intensity of hitting the guardrail, and the duration of hitting the guardrail. And so if we can get you to do it less frequent, you're going to do it. You are going to hit the red. Like because we are human. However, if we can do it less frequently, if we can have the intensity of the reds be less, instead of it being a 10, maybe we drop it to an 8. That is a win. To say you're never going to get in the red, that's not realistic. But to say, hey, we're making. And then finally, duration. Instead of, let's say, golf. I've had golfers who once they blow up on a hole, they're done for the entire round. They have one bad hole and they're done. But then can you flush it and just refocus from hole to hole? And then what we want to get them to do is shot to shot. Focus on one shot at a time. And again, if they can learn how to bounce back a little bit faster, and then that could become part of the post-round routine. How fast did you bounce back from the red? How intense was the red? How many reds did you have? And so that it becomes part of the process. And then over time, hopefully you'll see a trend that they happen less frequently, they're less intense, and they don't last as long.
I love the expectation, accounting for they're going to happen, especially in the game of golf. It is not a game of perfect, this beautiful, complex game that we love. Yet, am I also hearing correctly that that's almost like identifying ahead of time what are those potential triggering outcomes or even phrases of self-talk we might mutter that are indicators we're on the verge of yellow, ultimately red. So in golf, it could be, okay, you shank one OB or you just made double. Old version of you might have got really heated, thrown a club, checked out. Is it becoming aware of those own specific patterns and behaviors too?
Exactly right. You cannot change what you're not aware of. Again, it's all about systems thinking and how do you take a look at the system and then you know where you want to go and to build safety margins around. So again, you could have, if I double or when I double, this is what I do. I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm going to take a breath and just focus on what I'm grateful for. Like you can literally create an emergency plan, so to speak, when it happens. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but it's somehow some way to get you to bounce back faster. That's what we're trying to do. We're getting you to be more flexible and to get you to focus on the present as fast as we possibly can.
Preparation, systems, frameworks to navigate a life of unexpected and uncontrollable variables. That makes perfect sense.
Yes. And it's a common phrase in the military. As a performer, it's just in life, you have to be able to be successful in a VUCA environment. V stands for volatile, U stands for uncertain, C stands for complex and or chaotic, and A stands for ambiguous. And so to be able to thrive in an environment like that, we need to be adaptive. You need to know that that game plan that you had going in, it can go out the window right out the gate, and be ready for that mentally and physically and emotionally prepared for that. And so that's why these systems are so important, and these game plans and to talk about it is so important, so that we don't keep making the same mistakes. Something we often say is, progress, a phrase I love, progress is, you're making progress when you're making new mistakes, something to that degree. So not the same mistakes, but when you're making new mistakes, and you keep making, that means it's a signal you're making progress, because you're overcoming new obstacles and new opportunities to learn and to grow. And we're big on just don't make the same mistakes, which we will, but we're new levels, new devils. You're going to make some new mistakes. And so, okay, let's keep learning from those.
That hits me right in the feels specific to my golf game. It's a good reminder for me. Plenty of mistakes, but they are new mistakes. So I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me this. I love to ask this question to all of my guests. I want you to imagine that there is a billboard in the middle of a golf course. The billboard is visible from all 18 tee boxes. You have the opportunity to write a message of your choosing on that billboard, so it is visible by all players. What's the message you're writing on that billboard, Justin?
It would be a question. Maybe the best question. I mean, again, I don't know. You asking me this next week, it would change. But based on the priming of this conversation, it might be, what can you control right now? That would be the question. What can you control right now? Or another option would be like, what do you need to let go of right now? That might be it too. And just have them it'll be more interactive. So that depending on who you are, it doesn't matter where you are, the answer will be different for you. What can I control right now? I think I'd go with that one.
Okay. I like that.
What can you control? Yeah.
Yeah. You can reset, recalibrate, refocus, and onto that one-shot mentality.
Yep. Exactly.
Justin, this has completely exceeded my already high expectations. Thank you for the energy, the wisdom, the passion in today's conversation.
Awesome. No, thank you. These are awesome questions, and I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. Where can our listeners go to, first and foremost, follow you, connect with you, but also learn from you, get your work, and even learn more about working with you?
Yeah, the thing that any of social media, any from LinkedIn to Instagram at Justin Sua, but I think where we're connecting with me most is my new newsletter. It's only been out for a couple of months, and it is where a lot of these strategies and principles that we just talked about, they're in writing form, and they are sent right to your inbox every Monday. And so if you go to any of my social media accounts, click the link, and you'll get that inbox, or you'll get that newsletter.
And I'll put all that in the show notes below, and I'll be the first one to say that all the newsletters are tangible, tactical, filled with action-packed advice that you can capitalize on and implement as soon as possible. Really, really great stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me, Justin. Outstanding. So excited. We're going to have to do this again.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Appreciate it.
You bet. For those of you listening, I know you found this conversation enlightening, inspiring. It challenged you to think. It challenged you to audit your practices, your self-talk, the quality of the questions you're asking yourself. So go take action. Not only do I strongly encourage you to listen to it again, to take notes, share it with somebody, but take action on the notes you've taken so you can continue on your path, your pursuit of excellence to becoming the best version of yourself. And if you haven't done so already, it takes 30 seconds to leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to today's episode. That's what gives me the internet clout to get these incredible experts and individuals to join me, just like Justin, every week to bring you this value, this insight. So it goes a long way in supporting the show. But with that said, thank you again for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.